Hey, welcome to the first devlog for my game House in Hand. My name is Landon. I'm a developer living in Seattle, and I've been working this game for the past 6 months, kind of off and on. As you can see, I'm developing it in Godot 4, and the game itself is kind of a city builder with kind of card-based mechanics. The general gameplay loop being each turn you'll build a building, and then you can play a card on that building to give it different kind of effects. So maybe that helps the building gather more resources, or maybe it gives it more experience points so that it can level up and become a more efficient building. Stuff like that. So here's the game in its current state. As you can see, there's an island in the main section of the screen with some randomly generated terrain. These rocks and trees are the things that'll give you resources. Rocks obviously giving you like stone, and then trees giving you wood, pretty standard city builder stuff. Down here in the bottom panel, this is where your deck building and cards are. On the right side, this is your main deck. And on the left side, here is your discard. So when you play a card, it goes in your discard, and then will get reshuffled at some point back into your main deck. On the right side here is like an information panel. These are your current resources you have. So there's gold, wood, stone, and food or fish, whatever you want to call it. This bottom panel here is kind of an information panel for whatever you're currently selected or hovered over. I'll showcase that more in a little bit. This is the end turn button to obviously end your turn. And up here is the shop button, which is what I'm currently working on, but I'll talk about that more in a bit. So first things first, we need to build a building. So we'll drop down the build panel. It's only 4 buildings right now, and that's all I kind of currently have planned. I may introduce more buildings in the future, but for now, these are the main 4 buildings I'm going to work with. There's the guard tower, which defends against bandits. That's not implemented at all, so I'll talk about that later. The homestead, which is kind of your bread and butter building that gathers the resources from the island or the world or whatever. The merchant, which allows you to buy and sell cards, and then the port, which allows you to buy and sell resources. And the idea behind the port would be that resources kind of have a variable buying and selling price, kind of like the stock market in Animal Crossing, like with the turnips or whatever. So occasionally maybe wood will be selling for a really good price, and you may want to sell wood to get extra gold, something like that. Anyways, we'll build a homestead, and we ideally want to build it, near some resources so it can actually gather stuff. And then we will close it, and we'll go down here, and you'll see that the cards kind of have this hover effect on them. And if you drag them out, it shows what they can be played on. So this card can't be played on trees or rocks, but it can be played on the homestead. And if you let go, it nice smoothly goes back to your hand. So the harvest card enables the homestead to actually gather the resources, and this one for 2 turns, this one over here just for 1 turn. The collection card disables harvesting but collects taxes, which means it just gives you some gold that turn. And the development card adds experience to the pawn or the building. These are pretty much the only cards I have implemented so far. I have a lot of ideas for other cards. I just haven't implemented them yet. So here we will play the harvest card on the building. You'll notice that it gets kind of a little flag in the corner, indicating that this building is going to harvest on the end of the turn. All the different cards have kind of different logos that they may put on the building, like the collection puts this little star thing on it to indicate that it'll be collecting taxes that turn. So then if we end the turn, you'll see first that we get another card from our deck. It kind of looked like it came from the discard, but it actually does come from this deck. This whole UI down here is a little bit funky, and I've kind of got to fix it. I'm sure you probably are looking at this development card and being like, what's going on with that font? I got a lot of work to do on the UI. But regardless, you'll notice the flag went away, and I have my 2 wood back after I built my homestead from these 2 trees, and I have a stone from this stone next to the homestead. So the last thing is that, and you may have noticed it when I was hovering over the cards, this panel on the right kind of shows you more information. That's what I was talking about earlier. You can also click on the homestead, and you can get a bit more information about that. You'll notice at the bottom it has a level. Each building has a level and a kind of a level progression system, and that's what these development cards are for. So if I were to play these 2 development cards on the homestead, it would now be level 2. The idea being that now it'll gather more resources from the resources within its gathering radius. That's not actually implemented yet, just kind of the bare bones framework is, but that's kind of the idea. And all of the buildings will have sort of a level up progression. So as far as the other buildings go, none of them are really implemented right now, but I do have plans for them, so I'll talk about each of them a little bit. So the guard tower can be placed anywhere. There's no special criteria of where it can go, and it will defend against bandits. So the idea behind bandits is that they'll appear randomly periodically and they'll attack your homesteads, making that homestead kind of unusable for the duration of like the bandits attacking it. And the guard tower will spawn guards that will travel to the homestead and get rid of the bandits for you. The merchant allows you to buy and sell cards. The idea behind placing the merchant instead of just having one global shop is that the more merchants you have, the more card options you'll have. So each merchant will have a certain number of cards that it'll cycle through, and having more merchants will give you more options. The port is an interesting building because it can only be placed on the edge of the island, close to the water. So you'll see if I go here and I try to place it, it fails. But if I go near the water, I can place it and a little dock spawns. The dock is also kind of dynamic, so it'll spawn, actually in the water. So that's pretty much where the game is currently at. What I'm working on right now is actually implementing the merchant system. I have a pretty bare bones framework in place, but I haven't fleshed it out fully, but I can give a brief overview of it right now. So this is what the merchant shop window will kind of look like when you click that shop button. This will pop up as sort of a modal or an overlay. Each merchant will have its own panel with its different cards that rotate. It'll only have one of each card, so if you buy a card, this slot that the merchant has is empty until a new rotation comes through. Currently, the buy button doesn't actually give the player the card right now. It just kind of goes through this process of disabling the card and the button. But this is kind of the general idea of the UI and the functionality of the merchant that I'm working on currently. So that's it for this first devlog. I know it was kind of all over the place and I maybe went too quickly or glossed over things that you might want to know more about. So just let me know in the comments if you have any questions or concerns or whatever. I'm very new to YouTube and recording myself in general, so I'm not very good at it, but stick around and you can listen to me mess my way through these devlogs and my development process. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and like, subscribe, and whatever. You watch YouTube, you've heard it all before. So thanks. Bye.